So Kat Thompson, that's me, is an interdisciplinary artist and educator based in Virginia. Her practice integrates photography, textiles, collage, and installation to examine Afro-Caribbean selfhood within the African diaspora. Using her family as the foundation for work, Thompson tells a universal narrative of the immigrant experience, how histories are carried, reshaped, and sometimes lost across generations. Through personal and found materials, she traces the journeys of those who came before her while addressing the ongoing erasure of cultural memory. By layering archival and contemporary elements, her work preserves and reimagines the visual and oral histories that shape identity, migration, and belonging. Thompson's work has been exhibited at Page Bond Gallery, Visible Records in Charlottesville, Fenwick Gallery and Gillespie Gallery at George Mason University, and the Teffer Institute of Contemporary Art in Reston. She's currently a Hamiltonian Artist Fellow in DC and recently completed a postgraduate residency at the Torpedo Factory Art Center in Alexandria. She holds a VFA in photography from George Mason and an MFA in photo and film from VCU University. Welcome, Kat. Thank you. And joining us for this conversation is Alexis Assam, the Regenia A Assistant Curator of Global Contemporary Art at the VMFA. Assam joined the museum in late 2021 and organized the Richmond presentation of the survey exhibition Whitfield Lovell Passages. She served as a juror for the Southeastern College Art Conference annual curated exhibition and the Treywood Prize. Prior to the VMFA, she worked at the Philadelphia Museum of Art as the Constance E. Clayton Curatorial Fellow, where she supported contemporary permanent collection rotations, acquisitions, commissions, and exhibitions, including the Philadelphia presentation of Singa Ngudi Topologies. She organized the installation of Museum High Life, a gallery taught by Andrea Fraser. Prior to her time in Philly, Assam worked as the Romero Bearden Graduate Museum Fellow at the St. Louis Art Museum, where she co-curated The Shape of Abstraction, selections from the Ollie collection. She holds an MA in Art History and a BA in Art History with honors from Florida State University. Welcome.
So I wanted to start out this, conversation between us in relation to the title of the exhibition, because I think that's really interesting and it really sheds light on how interested you are in literature and scholarship and other artist practice as a central, starting off point for all the work that you do. Yeah. So, A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, which is what this exhibition is titled after, has really been the center of your thinking for this whole body of work. What about that text stood out to you, and how does that apply to everything you see in the show?
So, after reading that book, what really stood out to me was her perspective of experiencing these people coming to her land, taking it over essentially, colonizing it basically, categorizing the people of the land, and how it almost, in a way, is what I'm trying to speak about, what I've been trying to speak about in my practice, just with my family. And it was just another gateway for me to really learn more about the Caribbean outside of what my family has told me and obviously what I've read through research, etc. But yeah, no, that book really resonated with me. Just the title alone, A Small Place, I really wanted to reflect not only the writing but the title in each and every piece. That's why majority of the work, specifically this collage wall, I think kind of speaks to it. A small island that has such a vast history and knowledge, but yet is so minimized just by one thing, which would be like tourism or like other media culture that has been placed on it.
Now, the title is thinking a lot about how her text in 1988 is so relevant even now in 2025, and how she talks about, how the tourism industry has a negative impact on the island and its people in many ways, and how so many things are catered towards the Americans. And then what was funny in reading the text, she repeats many times, or worse, Europeans. which just made me laugh. And so she talks a lot about infrastructure, about government buildings, about all of these things that are centered on the experience of people coming to the island and all of the things that the people living there no longer have access to. And I think like the first work that you see in the show on this side of the wall here, which is titled A Caribbean Beach, really puts a lens very specifically on that topic. So can you talk about how like tourism reflects on what you have read, what you have experienced in visiting there and talking to family, and how that relates to Caribbean Beach?
Yeah, so actually my experience visiting the island when I was younger, I never really got to go to the touristy spots because my family is from there, and the majority of them are in Kingston, so I would go to Kingston. I would not go to like Sandals Beach, I would not go to any of those hotels. Actually, I don't think I've ever been to a beach there, actually. Yeah, because most of the beaches aren't accessible to the public because of all the hotels. So what we would do instead would go to the waterfalls or like other parts of the island that are accessible to the public and the tourists as well, and still be able to kind of experience some form of Caribbean, excursion or whatever. But that piece up front, utilizing the postcard that says Caribbean Beach and it's layered above this photo actually taken of a body of water in Alexandria, Virginia. And just pairing those two really spoke to my experience, Caribbean, but living here in the South. So just like that, that thread of location, that thread of like time, and then like also accessibility. So when I found out she's also Jamaican, it was just like an instant connection.
And it's like this biography and this identity is so central to you, because not all artists center their work on this kind of information. And why is it important for you to explore?
I think because of my upbringing, and when my family moved here, there was such a push to forget about their time there and really focus on forward. What can they do to obviously survive, but also sustain their 3 children? Because I'm a middle child, I have an older sister and a younger brother. And they instilled in us that we need to look towards the American dream and really not fixate on this. So whenever I would ask about like their time on the island, they would always paint this positive narrative. So I would never hear of the struggles that come to be an immigrant when you initially live there and then move. I did hear from my mom when she first came to the country that she did have a hard time adjusting because her accent at the time was thick. Now not so much, she literally sounds like me. So in hearing that she struggled to just fit in, and with that, it kind of held her back from finding jobs, from different things to provide for her family outside of my dad. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. He was never really home, so a lot of that weight was on my mom. So what I see with my practice now and just going forward is like this open love note to my mom, to also just remind her that she is Caribbean, she is Jamaican. God bless your America, but like, no, you're actually Jamaican. And she always jokes that her Jamaican card has been revoked. I'm like, girl, like it's in your blood, there's no such thing. So a lot of what I'm doing now, it's just for them, to also remind them, and also to show that their offspring is still interested. Like, we want to preserve our culture, even though we're here. So this is my way of preserving that through found imagery, found archives, personal family photos that are also in this too, and then other found photos that I work with. So it's just like this big family gathering and holding on to, and yeah.
I love that it's a love note to your mom. I That's really beautiful. I also think that that concept of assimilation is something that so many immigrants feel coming to this country. People, like, to think about another, I'm from South Florida, so to think about like some of my friends growing up who like came from Puerto Rico or Cuba or other places, and then their parents didn't teach them Spanish because they wanted them to assimilate, they wanted them to have a cleaner path towards all of the successes that you talked about. It's like, it's so heartbreaking because we love our culture so much. It's so clear from your work how much you love it and connect to it. And we should all be able to celebrate that.
Yeah.
So I love that you're putting that love back out to her and showing her how important that is to center in her life.
Thank you. It's a long time coming. I think just with being a child of immigrants, but like specifically like Black immigrants, it's always hard to like find and really understand your identity, especially growing up in the American
I want
South.
to talk a little bit about what you said regarding people not really understanding who you are and where you come from. So I love for that reason that you included all of these different like tchotchkes and ephemera and keychains and like postcards and magnets and how other people who maybe have visited Jamaica, people who haven't visited, their perception of the island through these kind of takeaways. Can you talk a little bit about why that is an element in all of your work?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do was remove figures, public figures that people associate Jamaica with. On that wall, you do not see Bob Marley. So I just wanted to remove him and really focus on other parts, other people that really, honestly, created this pathway for people like Bob Marley, like Miss Lou, like not American. She's a poet. She really pushed the usage of patois in like everyday life on the island, like on the air, radio, etc. So that's why there's this like English to like Jamaican patois, because of me not having that accent, which I really wish I did. So that's another thing that I'm missing out on. I always joke around with my family and try to speak patois, and they just look at me, they side-eye me.
I get laughed at.
They're like, stop. So I still do it. I don't care, because once they're gone, like, it's gone. You know, I do have some cousins that are around my age that still have their accent because they're from there and they just, migrated here. But in my immediate family, that will be gone.
So there's a lot of like really important cultural elements that she's kind of woven together here with this collage. So we have the coat of arms here. We have like different family photos, like of different people in her family. We have the national flower with the hibiscus here. We have the national fruit, which is ackee, that you're seeing the canned ackee here. And just like so, like Miss Lou, so many other like important elements, but then also the colonial ties an element, because we have Prince William and Kate Middleton up here. And kind of other, they're also down here as well. We also have like colonial images from like 19th century prints and photographs. So we're just seeing like a whole like range over like a 200, 300 year period that she has really integrated throughout. Can you talk about like what this work means to you and the scale?
Yeah, so this work, it literally came into being when I was here installing. It initially wasn't going to turn out like this. I had to be in this space and really let it resonate with me and figure out what it wanted to be. So I really enjoy looking at this because it's my exit point a little bit from working with family photos and going into actual archival imagery and integrating that with what I do now, but seeing it as just an extension of like the family photo and really trying to tie in that these are what make the island, what makes the history, while also talking about like the colonial impact and the ties still to this day, like with Prince William and Kate Middleton. Yeah. So I purposely distorted their faces because there was no need for you to see their faces at all because they're just like a fragment of the history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maki, the national fruit, you can't get the actual fruit here.
Yeah.
So we have to get it from the can.
Yeah.
It's
not as good.
No. But I didn't know that until, not recently, but for like a while back, my mom told me.
Yeah.
I thought you could buy the fruit here, just like, no. The import regulations are, for the US, are very strict. And that's one thing they did not want coming in from the island.
Yeah.
So just like, I mean, it is the fruit, but the fact that it's contained and it's probably processed is not the actual.
It's much softer. Like when you cook it, it's like a little bit more watery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you don't get to experience it in the fullness of it.
Yeah, it's like this fake experience.
Yeah.
This manufactured experience.
Like if you were to eat at a Jamaican restaurant in town, there are multiple. Like if you had Atkins saltfish for breakfast, you're gonna get it out of the can. You're not gonna get like the full experience of like what the beauty of that dish is and what the joy of eating that food is because you're not there. To point out, I liked that you also included like all of these a few like 90s and early 2000s dance hall videos and like musicians and like photos from like parties and things.
Yeah.
That was a really fun element, like bringing it kind of more into the present day.
Yeah. The thing that also resonated with me with the book, Regenia A said something about time on the island, like the past, the present, and the future are non-existent.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me the most, and I wanted to basically emulate that in this piece. Like it's just this long, extensive like time thread that's never really gonna end.
Yeah.
Just because time there just moves so slowly.
About this show and about your practice in general is that you're very multidisciplinary. Can you talk about why you work across like collage, photo, textile, all of these different elements, and why that is important to tell the stories that you want to tell?
So initially I started off as a traditional photographer, and I found that was very troublesome to do. Make work about a location that I'm not there. And I usually don't like to work in like the metaphorical space. Like I would love to actually photograph the island, photograph my time there, photograph, just existing there. But the use of other materials creeping into my practice, also I'm not a photographer, I like to refer to myself as lens-based. So using other lens-based imagery like family photos, what else? Anything that camera has taken, I want to incorporate in my work, just to show that photography isn't like one note. There are these other branches to it, and working with the archive is that. And then incorporating now textiles, because when I was in grad school, I was selling in the photo department, and really having fun with that material. As you can see, my work is very colorful and fun. It's through the gaze, I want to say, of a child, because I am basically teaching myself about the culture, the region, the people, etc., because my family was like, nope. So I had to teach myself, basically. And having that childlike gaze brings in these portals of like playfulness.
Yeah.
And that's how I see my work. That's how I approach my work. I mean, there are parts where I do get a little serious and go back to traditional photography, but I think having a combination of the two is just a reflection of who I am as a person. Like I'm not one note. I'm multidimensional, and so is my work. So
that's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about using the 4x5 camera?
Yeah.
And why you like to use it? What's the difference in using that versus another type of camera?
Yeah, I was really drawn to the 4x5, just large format in general, just because of its own history with just photographing other groups of people. Just like basically how they would, like even some of these photos up here, how they would use the 4x5 as a method of documentation, but almost in this
Ethnographic lens.
yeah, this almost zoo-like effect, like this exoticizing effect, and I was like, nah, we're not doing that. So using the 4x5 allows me to basically have a conversation about it, but also being a Black woman using a large format camera, there's not that many of us. I can probably count like 5 or 10. So it's a nice entry way for me to also include that in my practice, but also be associated with other Black female photographers that do like the large format.
Who are some of those other photographers that you admire that work in this format, or other scholars that are like really influencing the way you think and the way you interpret and create?
Yeah, so one photographer, her name is Deanna Lawson. She's, I don't want to say she's an idol, but every time I just see her work, I just fangirl because it's beautiful how she photographs Black and brown bodies, and there's this lens of confrontation, dissection, but also she's so careful with it. I know she has received some criticism of the way she photographs, particularly the females, Black females, but I think, like, how is that different than other people doing it in other, like, different, situations, scenarios? But she's one. When I was in grad school, I actually got to take this really amazing seminar with this amazing professor who's actually here, Tobias. And I think that class, what was it called? Seminar Diasporic Art? Yeah. That class really radicalized me. And it really got me thinking about the materials that I've been researching, I've been using, and how outside of people, the materials, objects, are diasporic as well. So taking that class, I got to read Kat Thompson.
Yeah.
And then, OG Tia Camp. Those two in particular have been my go-to when I do research. I always go back to some of their readings.
Yeah, same.
Thank you, Tobias.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in grad school when I was taking seminars about Afro-diasporic art, and I was reading those same authors. And so I love that was an eye-opening moment for you, because it was for me as well. And I always go back and center those. And I told you I got to meet Kat Thompson twice.
I'm so jealous.
And it was incredible, and she's really nice. Yeah, she's at Northwestern. But everything she writes is genius and important, and she just ties together the history and the contemporary just so beautifully. Okay.
So I actually took that video back in 2022. I had the opportunity to go to Bahamas with my mother and my little sister, and I was able to bring a Super 8 camera with me. And at first it was just, me documenting and just enjoying my time there, but the more that, also we went on a cruise, by the way. So when we were allowed off of the boat, I took the camera with me, and I started to really see these connections between the region itself, between other islands, and also just the people, and then how the people interacted with the tourists, and how the tourists interacted with the people. And it felt very cringy in a sense.
Yeah.
So when I was done with the video, and I sent it off and I got it back, and I just looked at it, and that was my first time doing video, by the way. I never really worked with moving imagery, it's always still. And when I started to really look at it, I saw the potential of it. So since I've already been working in like this collage space, what would that look like on moving imagery? So a lot of the materials that I source archivally, I do get from like the New York Public Library. They have a very extensive digital collection, highly recommend. And I used that as a source, and then also the Internet Archive to basically find bits and pieces for this. And how I viewed it as like three perspectives. So my perspective, obviously, with the Super 8, documenting my time in the Bahamas, on the boat, off the boat. And then the perspective of like the immigrant that is shown in some of these videos. And then also just the media of it all. So that's the other perspective. So there's like three. Yeah.
I want to touch on what you were saying about visiting the Bahamas via a cruise. It's a really, it's just a really interesting way to engage with any culture because you're not engaging with it in any kind of authentic way. And when you come from, like when you have origins in a place and you're visiting like a Caribbean island in that way, it almost feels like you feel so apart from the people that you feel connected to. Like I've felt that many times before because anytime I go to Jamaica, I have the dual experience. Like you talked about your experience, like doing family things. You're not really going to the beach. You're spending time with people. You're in the city, all of that. And I have had both experiences where I'm in the city, I'm with family, I'm traveling, but I'm also doing some of the like fancy hotels, and I'm also doing like some of the fun, I don't know, like amusement park type things, while also, you know, being able to like go up the mountain and get the jerk chicken from the man that has the cart on the side. Like all of the things, everything. So I understand what that experience is of like trying to have like a fun time, but then also feeling like you're like disconnected from the people you also want to connect to.
Yeah.
So I like that you pointed that out.
Yeah.
Would actually love to hear some more about, since we're sitting in front of this piece that was activated at the opening, can you talk about performance work in your practice and why it was important to include in this?
Yeah, for those who weren't here the opening night, I had someone do this performance for me, and on this hot plate was a pot of oxtail. And the initial goal was for it to basically just simmer, and then the aroma just fills the gallery. And my friend who was able to do it for me, she would then go up, tend to the oxtail, and then sit down for a couple minutes and just do that on repeat. Why I did that was because I like to gatekeep my culture, and I wanted the viewer to experience the sense of smell, because that's universal. Like, you smell something, it's going to hit a memory. And when they did smell it, lovely. And then there's always the expectation, like, oh, can I have some? And no. So, nobody got any oxtail. It was cooking, it was simmering, it was filling the gallery, but it was not obtainable. So that was a way for me to take back and take control, while also the person that I utilized was supposed to be a younger me. I don't know how to do that. And I would watch my mom, still to this day, make oxtail, but I did not step foot in that kitchen. So that was a younger Kat who was tending to that oxtail and gatekeeping that.
Can we talk a little bit about the title piece for the show and just give people some context to that?
So this was actually the outside of the photographic work. Collage work-wise, this was the first piece that I made. And it was this way for me to leave the wall. Because working with collage is for me, is kind of difficult because I think I'm trained as a photographer, and when you have a piece, it's supposed to live on the wall. So I think that way. But I wanted to look at them in another way where they're able to be mobile, they're able to move around, they're able to also take up space as this collage piece. And when I was working on it, At first, I wasn't gonna have it be the photo for the show, but the more I sat with it, the more I was like, no, this is it. Especially the red acrylic with the woman, the magnet. I thought it was like a perfect node to it, just to speak about like stereotypical stuff, tourism stuff. Yeah.
Any significance to the cement blocks? Because you also included that.
Yeah, there are two things. I really wanted to just mess with the height of them. They're floor pieces, but they don't have to be 100% on the floor. But also, seeing the cement blocks reminded me of when I was younger in Jamaica, and actually when we go to my mom's, I think she was like her great aunt. That woman was old. And we would go up to her house in the mountains, and we would just see like cement blocks propping stuff up.
Yeah.
And then even like with this diptyque with the magnets, we would see like rusted metal that was on a shed or remnants of a shed or something. So just those little points, those little bits and pieces of material just reminded me of my time when I was a child, and just seeing those, I wanted to like bring them into the show somehow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the painted walls, the colors, majority like the Pan-African, but also just like the colors of the Caribbean, just like the same greens for the land, reds for the bloodshed, yellows for the sunshine, and the blacks for the people. And I wanted to bring that into the show without it being so on the nose.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that always happens is people that are of a certain descent, they always want to bring in like the flag.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I thought this is another way of representing. And if someone's walking by and they are of that and they see those colors, they would want, So I see all of these as just like these little signs to gather, to bring, to welcome, also to celebrate, specifically for the Caribbean. Just know that it's not just a place for you to go and vacation. There are people there that live there, and they have to survive. Don't buy land there. I know in Jamaica that's like an issue now. Like they're literally saying, "Do not come."
Yeah.
Because I don't know if any of you know Diplo, but apparently he bought land there, like acres of like land. And it's just like the same thing with Hawaii. Just look outward and just be aware and just pay attention and try to decenter yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's it.
I have a question about the back pieces.
Yes.
You pointed to the portrait and you said it was the most serious, and I just keep looking at it and I find it to be the most surreal.
Yeah.
In spite of everything you write, I mean, there's this maximalism aesthetic, but then there's this like solitary figure. It's the most surreal for me. It's the most melancholic and mythological. And so I just want to know the story, what is informing it, and then maybe a little bit about kind of the process of what's happening in the back.
Yeah.
That erosion also feels like what liquid.
Yeah. So there are two photos in the gallery that have a body that's cloaked with these textiles that I made, and it was a way for me to reference those without them physically being here. But also I've been reading a lot about just quilting, and in West African culture there is this person called the group, and that's basically a storyteller, and that's what I titled both those pieces as a way for this mythical creature potentially coming out of the waters of Alexandria to basically speak of the Caribbean culture, specifically Jamaica, but also carrying the weight, carrying the history. And then these are just extensions of the photographic work, those are actually 4x5 film that were also photos of the same individual wearing other textile pieces that I made, but I burned the negatives. I burned them just to also further conceal and like hide, not hide, I don't want to use that word, but shield is a better word, and then to further push that lack of visual, I then printed them on this spray sheer material that you can only see them through this black square behind it. And I really like the name of the material. It's called Starlight Organza. And they almost look like little stars that then bring me back to the collage wall because they're the same format on 12 by 12 as the quilt blocks that are at the top, those stars. Those are actually the Virginia. Yeah, those are actually the Virginian quilt blocks. So those are little stars. And how I viewed that when I was installing them, working with them, it was a way for me to have my ancestors come find me back in Virginia, since I'm on this journey of finding them, but also understanding and really looking at the history. And throughout my process of working with found imagery, specifically family photos, I think just in the realm of like vernacular photography, specifically Black and just other cultures, and how they're so accessible, they're becoming accessible, and just there's so many hands at play that are just touching them. And the thing about like the Caribbean, just Black culture in general, we're very giving, and like it's not reciprocated. So I then bring that in to the visuals, and I change the format, I pixelate them even further to the point where you can still make it out, but not 100% if you actually saw the photo in front of you. So it's just another way to further push that gatekeeping and further push that concealment. Just because I just want to protect my culture. Because I feel like it's on my shoulders now. It just feels so heavy that like I'm becoming the keeper of the archives for my family, but also I'm one of like the 3 branches of preserving it. Like I was telling you earlier, like me and my siblings, we don't speak patois, so like that's gonna be non-existent after my parents leave. So
I just want to just give you gratitude for sharing your journey.
thank you.
And taking us on this journey. As you step through it, I'm curious to get your perspective on how it has changed you as you clean your culture, how it has changed you, and how it will affect your art going forward.
Really good question. So I see it as this, I think it's always going to be in my practice. Like, I'm not going to step away from this ever. I'm not going to make work that's not of the culture just because it's this way of preserving it. So now, being in this space, looking at what I have created for this show, I'm thinking of other things that I could possibly extend and possibly use as, obviously, to like make work for my practice, but also to have some sort of reconcile within myself to like say, yes, this is what you should be doing. Because there are those times where I do feel like a fraud. So in making this work, it kind of solidifies that I am Jamaican. Even though I was born here, my blood is full Jamaican. Like, I don't have one Jamaican parent, I have 2. Godspeed. So